Welcome to TIG Tech Talk Tuesdays, a webinar series designed to inform and guide individuals on effective and efficient assistive technology currently being used throughout Wisconsin. My name is Lynette Jabus, and I'm the Central Regional Coordinator for the Transition Improvement Grant, and will be the moderator for today's webinar. Today's webinar will focus on 3 robust apps. SoundingBoard, a customized communication app that can be used on websites, work sites, in school, or during an assessment, along with employment information and communication skills, which are 2 apps from the MECA system. The MECA system is a video tool that assists with increasing those crucial soft skills needed to succeed not only in the workaday world, but also in post-secondary school, education, training, and/or social situations. For sound quality and control purposes, the host will mute all mics. Mics will remain muted throughout the webinar. Questions and/or comments can be submitted throughout the webinar. To submit questions, please click on the questions and answers icon located at the bottom of your screen. When the Q&A panel appears, you will have the option of submitting your questions using your name or anonymously. To send questions anonymously, click on the Send Anonymously box located at the bottom left side of the Q&A panel before submitting your question. As I mentioned earlier, the focus for today's webinar is on 3 amazing apps: SoundingBoard, employment information, and communication skills. And folks, we have a delightful individual here today to show us how to use these powerful tools. At this time, I would like to introduce Erica Peterson. Erica is a rehabilitation specialist at Stout Vocational Rehabilitation Institute, otherwise known as SVRI, where she conducts professional evaluations to determine assistive technology needs. Her specialty areas include wheel seating and mobility, pre-driving, and intensive vocational evaluations. Erica is an active member of RESNA, which is the Rehabilitation Engineering and Assistive Technology Society of North America, and also of NRA, the National Rehabilitation Association. Oopsie. At this time, I would like to go ahead and share my screen over to Erica, and she can begin today's webinar.
All right, can everyone hear me okay? All right, sounds good. Well, like Lynette said, I'm Erica. I work at the Stout Voc Rehab Institute. Thank you for that introduction, Lynette. I've been here almost 9 years. I provide vocational evaluations as well as assistive technology assessments. I also do pre-driving evaluations, plus a lot of other things. So I want to show you a few different apps that I use in my evaluations when I'm here at Stout. These apps can be used during assessments and evaluations, but also in school settings, on work sites, in home, or anything. I think they have a lot of applications. So I wanted to share these with you because I find them helpful, and I think that you could find them applicable in a lot of the situations that you might work with. Okay. So I'm going to share my screen here with you all. Okay, so the first app that I'm going to be going over is the SoundingBoard app, okay? It is by AbleNet, and this is the first screen that you see when you open the app. I use this app merely as a task list, a reminder, but also communication, okay? It uses different boards to help people with doing tasks, whether that be a work task, a school task, a daily living task. It can be really anything, okay? What I like about this app is that it comes with preloaded boards, and you can also customize and create your own boards. I'm going to show you how to do that today. Okay? So I'll show you the preloaded boards first. I'm just going to scroll up. You can see here, it starts here with clarification and goes down here to yes and no. I'm just going to tap on a few of those so that you can see a little bit of the examples of what's preloaded here on the app. So this is one example. This one here.
What did you say?
I'm not sure if you can hear the sound, but the app itself said, what did you say? Can you guys hear that? Okay. This one here.
I don't understand.
I don't understand.
Please repeat that for me.
Please repeat that for me.
Please explain that more.
And please explain that more. So that's just an example they have there for clarification. So if you working with a student or a consumer or a family member that you know, they needed prompting in order to chit chat with whoever they were talking with, those are very basic preloaded boards that could be used. Let's jump down here to expressions. A lot of times I'm working with people where, you know, expressing themselves is one of their biggest barriers, whether that's, you know, disability related or immaturity related or just something that they're not used to doing. And so I find that, you know, any way for a person to have an outlet to express themselves better is great. Okay, so these are some of the preloaded boards from the from this category.
Cool.
Okay, so there's just different, you know, interesting words here.
Awesome.
Awesome.
Please stop.
Please stop. Okay, so that's more polite ways, I guess, to communicate with people if they're having a hard time understanding it, or maybe they're acting out instead of expressing themselves. Down here to money, it gives you an example so you don't have to whip out your own wallet or grab some stuff out of your pocket, although that is also helpful in real life situations. We do that too, you know, having a digital pictures of things or fake money isn't always helpful because it doesn't always look real to the person that's trying to learn from it or use it or count it. So these actually look pretty realistic compared to stuff that I've used in the past. Okay, so this is just gonna
Penny.
say out loud what the coin is. Okay, let's jump down to social here. All right, so we have some social images here of what somebody would be looking for
I'm
when
glad you came to see me.
communicating with people. So some basic ideas of what they would say when they're introduced to somebody or when they're talking with somebody or leaving somebody
Bless you.
or somebody sneezes. I want to show you a couple of the boards that I created specific for a couple of my clients that I worked with. Now, to give you an example, I work with individuals on a short-term basis. Our evaluations are typically between 2 and 5 days long. So I get to know the person quite well, but not for over a long period of time. Okay, so I do an in-depth interview and we do assessment of different skills and evaluate their work skills and abilities as well as other things. So the boards that I've created that I'm going to show you today are boards that I developed during that short period of evaluation time because it was helpful for me to see if they could interact with this app, but also do that work task that I was needing them to perform. Okay. The first one here is bolt inspection. Bolt inspection is a work sample that we use here in our lab. I'm going to let you listen to each of the different prompts on this board here, and I took all these pictures right from my iPad in order to upload them right to this app.
Inspect the bolt for length.
Okay, again, I'm
The bolt
not
should
sure if
fit between the two uprights.
not sure if you guys can hear that, but so I tapped the picture that said number 1. So I labeled them in order of when they're supposed to occur and what the steps are in order so that the consumer really didn't have any questions about which step he was supposed to perform in what order. So the first one was to inspect for length. So in the picture, it's looking, you're seeing a bolt in between two wooden uprights on a platform.
Inspect the bolt for flaw. The head of the bolt should have 6 even sides.
All right, so the next one describes what the head of the bolt should look like and how to count the sides.
Inspect the bolt for weight. The weight should be between 29.2 and 29.6 grams.
So in this picture, I was able to capture an image of the bolt right on the scale because that's the next step, is to weigh the bolt. And it had a verbal description of what it had to be within on that specific picture.
Inspect the bolt for function. The nut should thread easily onto the end of the threads of the bolt.
All right, so the number 4 is inspecting the bolt for function. So their instruction there to thread that nut onto the bolt as far as it goes.
The bolt is acceptable if the nut threads easily all the way to the end of the threads. Leave the nut on the bolt.
All right, so number 5 is looking for those bolts that are acceptable. So if the nut does thread all the way onto the end of the bolt, it is acceptable. This last picture I left in there, it's just a general reminders for the individual when they're completing the task.
Make sure that you follow the steps of the inspection in order. Place each bolt in the appropriate bin with the head of the bolt facing away from you.
Okay, so that one just reminded the individual that they need to complete the steps of this process in order. The reason being is that a person can make multiple mistakes on this task if they merely just look at which one they want to look at first and put it in that flawed box, because a bolt might have multiple flaws to it. So it's important that it falls into the right box when I, as the evaluator, am looking at the work sample when they're all done to see how they did for their errors and their quality. Okay? I'm going to jump back a screen. Are there any questions so far? Okay. I'm going to jump back a screen. I want to show you the other board that I've created with one of my consumers. This is a person that needed a little bit of assistance on what to do after the next task. Okay, so the previous board I showed you was a step-by-step example of how to complete one task. This board I developed it's kind of like a task list, but it's taking out the reading part. So the individual doesn't need to read. They only have to look at the pictures and tap it to listen to the instructions. All right, so the first picture you see here, it's labeled number 1 and it says sort colors, and I snapped an image of what it was I wanted this person to do.
Sort the colors.
It's pretty easy. It says sort the colors. Okay. I needed to keep it basic for this individual because 1 and 2 step instructions were max for this individual to understand. So I wanted to make sure that it was going to be clear and concise for this person to understand what they were doing. And I should note that these are all tasks that the person had learned prior to us setting up this board. So he was familiar with the task. This board is just to help him remind him what he's supposed to do at what time. Okay.
Put the jars in the boxes.
All right, so the next task that this person had to do was put jars in boxes. You guys aren't familiar with this task, but I can show you a picture here. These are drawers here. They open up and there are jars placed in these drawers. So the individual, there's boxes over to the right, so he needs to put the jars in the boxes. Okay. The next one, this individual was huge on breaks. I mean, that was really his incentive to keep working, was to know when his next break was going to be. So we just incorporated that into this app, and it worked out well because then he knew exactly when he got to take a break. He wasn't consistently or constantly asking me, when's my next break, when's my next break, so that was pretty easy.
Take a break.
I told him to take a break, you know, and then I should say that after each of these, he was given a timer throughout this task so that he could have time management with each of these tasks, so he was asked to work for a period of time.
Sort the chips into the slots.
So the last one, after his break, I did want to see if he was able to return to work after his break. So we did a work task at the end instead of a break at the end. So again, he had learned how to do this task prior, and his simple instructions were to sort the chips into the slots, and he should remember how to do that. Okay? All right. Oops. Lost you there for a second. I've got my screensaver set on a really low setting. I should switch that. Okay, so I want to show you how easy it is to create a board or to edit or delete a board. Okay, and then I can talk to you about, actually let me show you about these options down here at the bottom. You can buy boards. I'm going to tap on the buy boards icon right at the bottom of the app. And it's set up where in an in-app purchase, you can purchase additional boards that are already developed by other users or by the creator of this app. So if I scroll through, there's community and then there's home. And I can tap on it. It doesn't let me, you don't get to hear the different options until you buy it, but this is what it is. So it has different icons, different pictures, different options than maybe what is in the already preloaded boards, okay? So that says general conversation for a female, so it must be a female voice. Getting dressed here, maybe has more male associated icons because it says it's associated for male. Okay. Let's do mealtime. So it has different pictures of what somebody might eat during a mealtime. So these, again, are preloaded boards that you can buy if you think it's beneficial for you and what you're using this app for. Down here next to buy boards, it says user data. If you tap that, what I like about this is if you're going to use this frequently with a consumer or a student or anyone that's using this app, is it shows you how many times a certain board was activated. Okay, so that's helpful. For me, I think it's helpful in a work situation. So if I'm setting up, you know, this person, whether it's on an iPod Touch or an iPad or some sort of tablet device, and I want them to use this app, I want to go back and see, did they actually open the app and use it? You know, which boards did they use? Was it helpful? And I won't always know if it's helpful for them unless I verbally go get feedback from them or their coworker or their job coach or their supervisor. But I can at least go in and say, why'd you tell me you were using your board when it says that you've activated it absolutely 0 times? So I think that that's a great accountability for that student or that consumer that you're really trying to work to improve their kind of buy into something like this, you know, getting them used to using it, because the only reason that we recommend it is we think it could be helpful. Okay. All right. So it also, oh, I should mention, it also talks about most popular symbols. So if there's symbols, the different symbols that you're using, it tells you which ones were activated more, and that just might be helpful from you as setting it up standpoint. You can also export this into different formats if that's helpful, and email it to yourself or to somebody else that's inquiring about it. Okay, now I'm going to show you step-by-step how to add a board. This is helpful because it's the whole purpose of the board is to customize, the whole purpose of the app is to be able to customize your own boards. And that's what worked well for me in my evaluation, is because each evaluation is different. Each time I work with a consumer, they are doing different work samples and different tasks. Their abilities are different, so I need to be able to customize the icons and the words and the recordings to be something different each time. Okay, so to add a board or customize it, as I say, is up here on the right where it says add board. So I'm going to tap that. This can be a little confusing. I'm going to go back one just to show you here. I thought it was confusing the first couple times I did this because it felt like I was doing the same thing over and over. So when I tap add board, it's going to actually ask me for the picture that I have here plus this description first. Not to be confused with what you're actually starting on the next screen, which I'll explain to you. So the board name, we're just going to call it test. Actually, let's call it homework. Homework reminder. I'm going to select an image for the board. You can take your own picture, you can pick from your library, or you can use the symbols library. I'm going to do that for this purpose. So I get to pick from all these symbols. We're talking about homework, so I'm going to go to school here, to the school option, and I'm just going to pick a random picture that I think looks like it might remind me to do homework. Okay, so we've got this icon here. I'm going to hit save. Now it says record prompt message. Now, I don't think I have to do this because my arrow is already filled in. So I'm going to skip this step because I don't necessarily need a message to go with this. Okay, so now I'm actually in the board, and I'll explain what that means when we go back. So this is your image that you want to start your board. Okay, so I'm going to tap add image. So again, we're talking about homework. This is maybe a reminder for someone to do their homework. So let's add an image here. Select from symbols library. Let's say we want them to do math first. Okay, so let's go to numbers. Oh, those are some boring icons. Let's jump back here and let's go back to school. Maybe there was something better here with numbers. Well, let's do some tally marks. Okay, so let's make that our picture and we hit save. So that's going to be our picture up here. So remember, we're going to do math first for this individual's homework. Message name, I'm going to just say math. Hit save. This is, and where I tap here is where I record my message. I'm going to see how well it picks up my voice, okay, because I'm not real close to the iPad. So I'm going to hit record message. It's time to do your math. And then you hit stop. It's time to do your math. Okay, picked it up well enough for me to hear. I'm not sure if you guys can hear it. You can do another message if you'd like, okay? And And then you can also link it to another board. Okay, I don't need to do that right now. I just want to show you something basic. Okay, so then I know that all my forms have been filled out because this arrow is filled, and that means I can go to the next step. So I tap my arrow. All right, so it shows up here. So the more images I add to my board, the smaller they're going to be. So if you remember back to my examples, I had one board where I had 6 images. The next one had 4. So let's add another one just so that you can see that. So let's say after math, maybe we'll work on reading next. So we'll go back to school. I just see notebook paper, so we'll do that. Maybe writing will be next. Message name, we'll put writing. Save. Okay. Now you notice that I can't go next yet, and it's because I haven't recorded my message. Okay, so that might be a drawback for you. It might not be. You know, the point of this is to have that verbal prompt with the picture. So I think that's what's important about incorporating that with this app. So that's why it makes you, you know, have a recorded message in there. Time to do your writing assignment. Okay, so if you want, you can play and listen to it.
Time to do your writing assignment.
Make sure it's what you want, or you can record a new one over it. I'm going to hit next. So now writing. So now it goes math, writing. Now, if you want them to be numbered, like I did in my previous ones, you would just go back and edit math and you put a number 1 in front of it. You know, it just depends on how descriptive you want it for the individual. If they need to have that, those specifics in place in order for them to follow that, you can certainly make it as specific as you want it to be. Okay? So this is how you create a board. Are there any questions at this time? No? Okay. So I'm going to hit next here. I'm just going to leave these 2 on my board. I'm going to hit next. So what that means by hitting next is that means that it's, you know, that board is now finalized. Doesn't mean I can't edit it. I can certainly edit it after the fact. But you see that it's up here on the top. Homework reminder. It's got my 2 things. Let's tap them and listen to them.
It's time to do your math.
It's time to do math.
Time to do your writing assignment.
Okay, so again, you can make this as customized or as specific as you need it to be. Let's say you wanted to do a specific recording saying, you know, it's get out your math homework, go to page 82, problem 5. This is what you need to work on now. You know, you can be that specific if it's something that that's going to help that individual, and you're going to be able to customize it that frequently, where it's going to, because, you know, homework is going to change pretty often. Okay. All right, so I showed you examples of, you know, using those boards in a work situation, testing situation, or school situation, okay? That's really all that I have on this app. So if there's no questions, I'm going to move on to the next apps that we're going to discuss today.
Say, I do have, Erica, I do have a
Yes.
question.
Okay.
You had mentioned that this is a free app? Yes?
I believe this is $1.99.
Okay, then I misspoke. And then if you want to add preloaded stuff, then you pay per. Is that how that works?
Yes, I'm looking at the prices here. It looks like everything is about 99 cents for the preloaded. I'm sorry, the preloaded boards are already on there. But if you wanted to buy additional boards that are already made up, then they are 99 cents a piece.
Okay, thank you.
Yep, you're welcome. All right, we're going to move on to some of the MECA apps that I talked about, or that Lene had mentioned that we would be doing today. MECA, it's a group of apps by the Conover company, and I know Lene and I had talked about how these are purchased, and I know it can be a little bit confusing for us in discussion, but I was able to use these apps and obtain these apps because of my relationship with the company that produces these work samples. As I mentioned, I'm a vocational evaluator, so we have a lot of the MECA work samples that we use up in our lab. So we were able to use these apps as a trial, on a trial basis, to try them out and work with our consumers to see how they could be incorporated into an evaluation. But I feel like they do have other applications, and that's why I wanted to showcase them today. Because yes, I think from an evaluation standpoint, it's great to show these apps and to use them in that setting, but I also think maybe even greater benefit for them to be used on a daily basis, one-on-one with a consumer, a student, a son, daughter, you know, whatever it might be that you're working with one-on-one with this individual. Now I'm going to show you 2 specific apps, but if we have time and people are willing, I can show you a couple more as well. What I really like about them is they are video modeling apps. So I'm going to tap into the employment one first.
Welcome to the functional skills system.
Okay, so it uses that functional skills system.
Information, signs, and words.
This is specific to the employment information, signs, and words. Okay, so this is what pops up every time I open the app, and I tap to begin.
Select the video you want to watch.
So this is, I just get to tap every video that I want to watch. Okay, and you're wondering, well, why do I need to watch videos? Well, just take a look and watch first. So the top one says address.
Address. This word says address. Address means the name of the place where you live and to where your mail can be sent. Your address includes your name, the street where you live, your house or apartment number, and your city, state, and zip code. Address.
Okay, so that's one example of one video within this employment information, signs, and words app. Now, when I first saw these, I thought, wow, you know, this is great because I work with a lot of individuals that are usually older than 16. So 16, 17, 18 are about the youngest that I work with, on up to people, you know, that have been working, you know, in the workforce for years and years and years. But what I find most frustrating is, you know, those individuals that'll come in, those transition age youth, and they really don't know much about the world around them. Not necessarily work, but the world around them. They don't know their own address. They don't know their mom's phone number. They might not even know the street they live on, or, you know, when they started school. You know, it's just, they just know so little, whether that's them being able to express what they know or actually what knowledge that they have retained. So having apps like this, or having videos for them to watch, to have it sink in, or to relearn it, or to learn it in the first place, I think is huge. And I see a lot of potential for this to be helpful in school settings too, especially maybe, you know, young freshmen, sophomores coming in that, you know, that don't know a lot of this basic information that's going to be helpful for when they're trying out different jobs and going through temporary work or work experiences. It's going to be helpful for them to know, because eventually, you know, when they transition from school to work, or from school to the community, they're going to need to know these different things, for lack of a better word, or different ways to communicate in languages. Okay, so I'd like to go through just a few of these.
This word says appearance. Appearance is the way people look, how they dress, and how neat and clean they are. Appearance.
So this really addresses the soft skills, which are so important, especially, again, not to harp on it, but especially in that transition age youth, where they're just not, they don't have that soft skill developed yet for their own expression. So what I really like about each of these segments here is that it shows you the word, it tells you what the word is, and then explains what that, you know, appearance, that, you know, that doesn't really mean much to some people, but then when you explain it, you show, you know, a woman's appearance, a man's appearance, and then say the word again and explain, you know, that's how you look, it's how well you look, because looking good for a job is important. You have to be prepared and you have to look presentable. You have to show up and be ready to work and not be wearing your PJs, okay?
Application. This word says application. An application is a form you fill out when applying for a job. The application form may ask you for such things as your address, schools you have attended, work history, or other jobs you did in the past. Application.
Ooh, I like this one. Let's talk about attitude.
This word says attitude. Attitude is a way of acting or behaving that shows what a person is thinking or feeling. During a job interview, it is very important to have a good attitude. Attitude.
You know, that's huge in itself. I want to give you an example of a conversation that I had to have, a hard conversation I had to have with a consumer who was not young. You know, this person had been in the workforce for a while. But we had to talk about his attitude, and I had to bring it up, and he was a very intimidating person. His stature was intimidating, his demeanor, just the way he presented himself. And so this, to teach someone what attitude is, and if you saw all those facial expressions in that video demonstration, that was really key, because I had to explain to this individual why I thought he had a poor attitude, or why I thought he was, you know, not willing to do things, or his facial expression was giving me a certain opinion. And he actually sat back and he said, you know, I'm so glad you told me this, because I had no idea I was coming off this way. And like I said, this was a grown man. This was not someone that wasn't, you know, used to or people and expressions and all of that. And he joked after you know, we got away from the being uncomfortable about it, but he joked and said, you know, my wife has said a couple things to me about it. And I said, you know what? I said, when you have a spouse that sees your face and can read your expressions all the time, I said, they're going to be the one to be able to tell you exactly what your facial expression is and how you're acting. And they're going to be the best one to dictate, you know, what you're saying on your face. Because if you presented like that in an interview, you know, and that's exactly why I had to have that conversation with him, was I was worried that if he presented like this in an interview, he was going to turn people off, you know, and he had a lot of skill. So I wanted to make sure that he wasn't going to set himself up to fail in an interview setting. Okay. All right. Ooh, let's talk about days off.
Day off. This says day off. A day off is a day that an employee is not scheduled to work. The employee is not expected to go to work on his or her day off. Saturdays and Sundays are common days off. Day off.
So that seems like a pretty easy one, but you know, sometimes we have to bring it down to basics for individuals that really aren't really sure what some of these terms are. If they go into an interview and they talk about benefits or retirement or, you know, paid time off versus sick leave, you know, they have to know the differences between that, okay?
Employer. This word says employer.
That's
An
a
employer
bakery.
is a person or business that hires people to work in return for money or wages. Employer.
Okay. You know, so specific words, you know, like I said before, knowing the language that might get thrown out in an interview or on an application or during the hiring process. You know, what's an exemption? What's the FICA tax? What's your federal income tax? You know, fringe benefits, gross pay, being hired, holiday. You know, all these things are super key when, you know, either just starting work or, you know, maybe there's other factors. Maybe, you know, the individual has a TBI and has difficulty retaining that information and needs to kind of relearn that. You know, going through this would be very helpful. Let's see here. Oh, even payroll deductions and pay periods, you know, all of that's different, but this will give you, let's just tap on that one so you can hear it.
Payroll deductions. This says payroll deductions. Payroll deductions are the amounts of money subtracted or held back from a worker's paycheck. Deductions are taken for taxes, insurance, savings, etc. Payroll deductions.
So it's brief, but it kind of gives you just that basic overview, okay? This one's huge.
Punctual. This word says punctual. Punctual means on time. Employees are punctual if they show up on time for their jobs. Employers expect the people who work for them to be punctual or not to be late for work or meetings. Punctual.
That's a skill that I assess every single day with the consumers that I work with. And it's important to stress, you know, being punctual or on time doesn't mean that you get to the parking lot, you know, when you're supposed to start work, or, you know, you walk right through the door at the start of work, but you're not ready to work. So oftentimes I explain, you know, being punctual is being to work on time and being ready to work. Okay, so I make a point of you know, practicing that with my consumers during their evaluation. So I'm standing there ready to work as soon as that, you know, the time starts on the next task that we're supposed to do, or after lunch break or something. So it's good practice for them to be able to show up on time, but then also be ready for work on time, not being on the phone with mom or on the phone with their girlfriend or boyfriend, or still eating their lunch. You know, I know that sometimes we get busy and that stuff happens and we get late, but it's important when we're working with, especially with youth that don't have a work history yet, that we explain the importance of being on time and punctual. Quitting time.
Quitting time. This says quitting time. This is the time when employees can stop working and leave for the day. If your working hours are from 8 a.m. until 5 p.m., then 5 p.m. is your quitting time. Quitting time. Reason for leaving. This says reason for leaving. On an employment application, you may be asked to explain why you left your last job or to give your reason for leaving the job. Reason for leaving.
So, I mean, we could go through all these, but we're not going to take the time to do that. I think they're all helpful and beneficial. And again, it's another way to explain to an individual what all of these terms mean when you're talking about work and employment and getting a job or quitting a job, you know, all these different things that are necessary for them to understand those demands and responsibilities of, you know, a job and getting employed, okay? So I want to jump back and go to that other app that we were going to talk about today before we run out of time here.
Welcome to the functional skills system.
All right, so this one is going to
Communication skills.
focus on communication skills, okay?
Select the video you want to watch.
So we'll watch a few more of these videos. Oh, I should have asked, are there any questions before I jump to this app?
No.
No? Okay, sounds good.
Nonverbal communication. Nonverbal communication. Nonverbal communication is communication with someone without using words. When you use facial expressions, eye contact, touch, gestures, and physical appearance, you are using nonverbal communication. Nonverbal communication.
Okay, so
Select the video you want to watch.
again, why I'm showing you these videos is I think that they can be helpful in a teaching type setting, and it doesn't necessarily have to be in a school setting, but in a situation where someone needs to learn these different things by seeing it done. I work with so many individuals where if you tell them something or if they read something, it's just not going to sink in. They need to see it, they need to feel it, they need to do it. Okay, so this video modeling is the one step in that direction, so they can actually see it. They can see the people acting it out. They can see what the people are wearing. They can hear the words being said, and it helps people understand a bit better of what we're talking about, especially in these different topics that we've listed here already. Okay. In talking about nonverbal communication, I have an example of a consumer that I worked with actually real recently where she didn't make eye contact and she actually would square her shoulders away from whoever she was talking to and really gave you the impression that she was not willing to or open to have that discussion, but in fact she was. It was just she just had that behavior where she just wasn't an open, you know, nonverbal communication person, where she just wasn't willing to kind of open herself up to that. And so that's something that we worked on, is just telling her, you know, this is what we see when we talk with you. You know, when we sit next to you and you turn the other way, you know, we don't want to take you the wrong way. Are you intentionally dissing us? Are you anxious? Are you nervous? And you know, and it obviously was some of those feelings that she was experiencing. But you know, once she got used to people, she was more open to having that relaxed, open feel conversation and being more open to having those discussions between her and us. Okay.
Listening.
Listening. When listening to someone, you must first stop what you are doing and listen. Make eye contact. Pay attention. Don't interrupt. Get main ideas. Ask questions. Understand feelings. Restate content. And avoid judgment.
Listening.
Select the video you want to watch.
Answering the door. Answering the door. When answering the door, you hear the doorbell ring. Go to the door and ask who is there. Look to see who it is. When you think it is safe, unlock and open the door. Greet the people at the door. Ask why they are there. Listen to what they have to say. Decide whether or not you want them to come in. Invite them in, and then close and lock the door. Answering the door.
So again, that's really basic, and it's not necessarily a school thing or a work thing, but that's definitely a safety and independent living activity that needs to be addressed, and usually is done by the parents in the home. But sometimes if you just don't have that right, family situation at home, you don't know the basics of answering the door, making sure to check who it is first, looking to see who it is first, asking. Don't just open the door right away because you're not really sure who it is. And then, greeting the person, shutting the door behind you, all those basic things, we have to explain that sometimes, over-explain it to people for them to understand.
Select the video you want to watch.
Let me just browse here. I know we just have a few minutes left. Let me just browse here and see if there's any more that jump out before if we have time, we can jump to another app too. Calling on the phone, that's a big one, especially nowadays with technology changing. A lot of families, a lot of individuals don't have landline telephones in their house, but you still have to make a call. You still have to answer calls, although most people text. So I feel like there's a shift and a trend happening with communication verbally over the phone, is that it's very limited. You don't have a lot of practice anymore. Mom and dad might not use the phone at home, so it might be hard to model their behavior. So let's take a look and see.
Calling on a telephone. Calling on a telephone.
And using a phone book.
When making a phone call, you must first look up the number, make sure that you dial the correct number, say hello, make sure that you speak clearly, ask, may I speak to? When a person answers, say hello, ask, how are you? State your business, write down information, say goodbye, and hang up. Calling on a telephone.
All right, we'll do one more on this one. This is one that
Select the video you
I
want to
typically
watch.
ask my consumers a bit, especially if they are still living at home or if they're pretty dependent on mom or dad. And I ask them, do you make your own appointments? Do you call the dentist when it's time, or do you need to get your eyebrows waxed? Do you call and make that appointment, or your doctor's appointment, or maybe it's a counseling appointment, something where they have to initiate making that. And I would say 9 times out of 10, it's mom or dad or whoever their support system is making that call. So let's take a look and see what this app would teach them.
Making an appointment by telephone. Making an appointment by telephone. Appointments are agreements to meet someone at a certain time or place. You can use the telephone to set up an appointment. When setting up an appointment, make sure that you look up the number of the person you are trying to call. Dial the correct number, say hello, say that you would like to make an appointment, ask for available days, decide on a date and time, give name and phone number, confirm date and time, say thank you, and hang up. Making an appointment by telephone.
Okay, Lenny, do we have any questions on that app?
Select the video you want to watch.
Nope, but not at this time. But
Okay.
I would like to add what you had just said too, with this whole generational shift. I can see this being extremely useful because of that modeling, and I like how it does the pre and then shows with the picture and actual live, and then it comes back again and repeats. This could be very very useful.
Right. Yeah, and I think there's a lot of application for it in a lot of different settings, and I know that I've said that already, but I don't think it's meant for one specific person with a one specific disability in one specific setting. I could see this used by moms and dads with kids with disabilities, or in special ed rooms, or in my evaluation lab, at a work site, any place where someone needs just a little bit more explanation, or a lot more explanation, just further clarification on what each of these skills or conversations are that they need to do. So do we have, looks like we have a couple extra minutes, Lene. Can I go over one more?
Sure.
Okay. my favorite, it's not my favorite, but it's an important one, and that's hygiene, because oftentimes
Welcome to the functional skills system.
people don't
Hygiene.
maybe take the best care of themselves. And, you know, as an evaluator, I oftentimes have to point that out. You know, I, say, oh, did you wear those clothes yesterday, or do you have any new clothes with you? Or not new in the sense of brand new, but in the sense of clean, unworn clothes and things like that. So sometimes it's tough having those conversations with individuals. So let's take a peek at the app and see how that can help us make those easier.
Select the video you want to watch.
All right, so it looks like a little bit of tutorials, how to take a bath or shower, how to floss and brush your teeth, how to use deodorant, how to wash your face and hands, how to control germs. So let's jump down to that germ one.
How to control germs. This says how to control germs. Do not let germs spread. You can control germs by covering your mouth, using facial tissue, not touching dirty things, and using rubber gloves. By doing this, you will keep your hands clean and protect yourself and others. Here is how to control germs. How to control germs.
Select the video you want to watch.
And we can do the wash your face and hands video.
How to wash your face and hands. This says how to wash your face and hands. Make sure you wash your face and hands to keep them clean. To do this, first turn on the water. Put water on your face and hands. Put soap on your face and hands. Rinse off the soap. Turn off the water and then dry your face and hands with a towel. Let's take a closer look. How to wash your face and hands.
All right.
Select the video you want to watch.
One more I'm going to show you. Let's jump back.
Welcome to the functional skill. Select the video you want to watch.
Safety signs and words app in this section here. So it's helpful on those basic safety day-to-day things that we probably don't think about. It's a nice gentle reminder about certain things. Maybe the crosswalk is a good one.
Crosswalk. This sign says crosswalk. A crosswalk is a path marked off for people to use when walking across the street. Cars are supposed to stop before going through a crosswalk. Crosswalk.
And I should point out on that one too, part of in our evaluation, usually one of the skills that we're looking at is orientation. And we do just some basic exercises to see how people orient themselves to their environment. And when it's not 24 degrees below zero, we usually do this outside. So oftentimes we test them in a crosswalk, and we obviously we don't make it dangerous, but we'll walk all through campus just to see if they're paying attention to buildings or to signs and to see if they know where they're going. But when we come up to a crosswalk, we'll intentionally stand behind them to see if they initiate crossing first, to see if they wait for us, to see if they look for cars, to see if they know the rules of the road. And you'd be surprised at how many people just start walking right into that crosswalk, or they'll just wait for one of us to initiate it. And that's big too. A lot of the individuals that we work with are vulnerable adults or teens, and they're so used to following in life, whether it's following mom and dad or an older sibling or a younger sibling or friends or a teacher, that they don't ever take that initiative to lead. So they won't step off the curb until one of us do it first. And that's a huge skill too that we try to work on is, if you're always a follower, you're never paying attention to where you're going. You're always just going to follow that person and rely on them, and that's really creating that dependence on that person or people in general. Okay. All right, let's pick one more before we wrap up here. Something that maybe isn't so obvious. Well, this is a good one. The dialing
Emergency dial 911. This sign says emergency dial 911. The emergency dial 911 sign tells you that you can dial 911 on your telephone when you need the police, fire department, or medical help very quickly. Emergency, dial 911.
And that might seem like an obvious one, but again, some of these are just so basic that we need to remind our consumers or students that we're working with, and to help them, watch these, to go over it, especially in an emergency situation where all of a sudden it's stressful and it's chaotic and people might be screaming at you to call 911 and they just freeze or they don't know what to do. Or, I'll quiz my consumers on it. Say, okay, what if your stove or something in your kitchen started on fire? What would you do? And their first reaction is, well, I'd pick up the phone and call 911. Well, in reality, they're supposed to exit the house first, go to a neighbor's house and call 911, or grab the phone on your way out of the door and call 911 from outside, in a fire situation. So, and we all have real life experiences, so we can all add that in and incorporate that as we can, and as we should, I think, to individuals. It's very helpful when we can explain and show and detail our own experiences for individuals, because that's going to help them learn too. And I think, again, that's why these videos are so helpful, is it's actually showing them, what to do or what not to do in certain situations. Okay. Any questions before we wrap it up, Lene?
No, there are no questions at this time. So
Okay.
I think we're pretty good. If you want to, this was wonderful, by the way, useful information on all of them. So we really appreciate that, and you taking the time today to explain these apps to us.
Absolutely.
Okay, what I will have you do then is stop sharing your screen, and then I'll reshare, and we'll wrap it up.
Okay, sounds good.
Okay. Oopsie, here we go. I lost it. Okay, again, our resources will be listed on our TIG website. In addition to, you can also tap into this information on Google Plus at the link offered there. We have a TIG Tech Talk Tuesdays page on Google Plus, and in addition, you can tap into a YouTube channel, which will have this recording on there, as well as other previous TIG Tech Talk Tuesdays that we've had. We would like to, again, thank Erica for being with us today. It was a great presentation, and thank the participants for joining us today. Our next TIG Tech Talk Tuesday will be a week from today, and we will have DVR explaining their overall process, how to sign up, and how assistive technology can be utilized through the DVR process, or how you can tap into it. So again, well, please tap into our next TIG Tech Talk Tuesdays, and thank you, Erica, and that, I guess, is all.
You're welcome. Thank you.
All right, take care.
Lene, have you stopped recording?
No, because I can't. I'd lose it. I lost it again, so.
Down on the bottom?